guys, it's Kayla. Welcome back to my channel. Here we talk about Disney, we talk about trip planning, a little bit of Dave Ramsey, some DIYs, and whatever else that we can come up with. So you've decided to take the plunge and you're going to Disney World. Congratulations, that's super exciting. However, I know that you probably have a lot of questions. Now what? There's so many things to do in Disney World. Where do I even begin? My hope with this video is I can help kind of break it down for you just to get everything started. The first thing that you need to know is, what is your budget? Now, when we go on our Disney vacations, we always pay cash. I'm gonna share with you how we plan for our trips and how we're able to save up. You're probably also thinking, wow, this sounds impossible. Disney trips are expensive. You're not wrong. But I am gonna show you how we actually save for our trips and how you can save it too. It's a lot easier than you would think. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna break down how we budget for our trip. This is how we come up with a number of how much money we're gonna need to pay for this trip. So I'm gonna actually link a printable version of the budget form that we use for our trip. So the first thing I wanna talk about is airline and travel fees. No matter where you live, you are going to have this expense, whether you're flying, you're driving, taking a bus, taking a train, I don't know, however you feel like getting there. Now within this, there are a few smaller categories. Number one is going to be rental cars. Are you going to be renting a car when you go to Disney to be driving around yourself? Or are you going to just be using Disney's free transportation? If you are driving, you need to accommodate for fueling costs as well as toll costs. Are you flying to Disney World? If that's the case, then you need to take a look at some example flights for around the time that you would be going so you can get an idea of what you might need to budget for your airline tickets. Now granted, this does not need to be a solid number. This is just an estimate at this point, so you can kind of have a little bit of a range to know where to start. You may also have some luggage fees. So if you're planning on checking a bag, some airlines do charge for that, some don't. I always say go ahead and budget some money for that just in case, because at this point you probably don't know what airline you're going to be flying on. While you're actually in Disney World, are you going to be using shuttles? Are you staying off property to where you're needing shuttled into the parks? Are you going to be using Uber, or they have the minivan services, anything like that? So you'll want to make sure that you have a little bit of cushion in case you do decide to use any of these other modes of transportation. Last thing, if you are driving to Disney World, they do have resort parking fees, as well as I know that there are fees for parking at the parks. The next big category on our list is your resort and hotel. Where are you going to be staying while you're on your trip at Disney World? Whether you're going to be staying on property or off property, you do need to make sure that you have an idea of the type of hotel that you're wanting to stay at and how much that is going to be. There's only two things you really need to think about. If you're driving or you're spending multiple days to get there, you're probably going to have some sort of hotel or lodging on your way there, as well as your actual hotel that you'll be staying at in Disney World. All right, and our third category for this section is going to be your park admission. If you're going to the theme parks, or even if you're going to other theme parks while you're there, you need to make sure that there are several things that you list in your budget. First of them being your theme park tickets. Duh. You gotta pay to get into the park somehow. So that could either be your day passes, or if you are an annual pass member, anything to that effect goes there. If you are planning on going to any of the water parks, sometimes that does cost additional depending on the type of park tickets that you have. There's not just the parks to do at Disney World. You also have golf, you have boating, you have bike rentals, and all kinds of other things. You want to make sure that you have a little bit of extra cash allotted for those. Make sure you look up on the Disney website an idea of how much things like that would cost. Finally, for this portion, let's say you're wanting to take a tour. Disney World has so many cool tours that you can take in the different parks, at the different resorts. So you need to make sure you plan ahead for these things. Also, did you know Disney World has a spa, and it's really great, real fancy. It's also very expensive. So if you're planning on getting a massage or facial or anything like that, make sure that you add this to your list. I know that that is a lot so far, but we're not done yet. There's more. Okay, so we have 2 more categories. The next one we're going to talk about is all of the kind of random extra things that are not fitting into those other categories. Are you planning on buying any souvenirs? Talk to your family and see kind of what types of things they might be interested in purchasing. If there's somebody that maybe they're just gonna want a shirt, then maybe you won't have to budget as much as somebody who maybe is thinking, oh, well, I'm gonna want some Mickey ears, and I think I'm gonna want some jewelry, or maybe some stuffed animals or collectibles or pins. So you wanna kind of make sure you have a good little buffer that in case you do find something that you really like in the parks, you're able to pick that up. Gratuities are very important. Not only do you have to tip your servers for food, and we're going to talk about food here in a minute, but you also have your mousekeeping in your hotel. You have, if you're going to drive or ride in one of the minivans or Uber, anything like that, you want to make sure that you are tipping those people for their work and their services for you. A lot of times it's not a lot. I mean, usually it's just a couple dollars here and there, but also you want to make sure that you're planning to have some cash for those, because those aren't going to be as easy as tipping your waiter at your restaurant with your Magic Band or your credit card or whatever. You want to make sure you have some cash to actually pay those people. Oh, and Memory Maker. Memory Maker is a good one. I highly recommend getting Memory Maker. If you're on the fence about it, I personally think it is so worth it. I am a big photographer, and so taking a lot of pictures on our trip last time, if we wouldn't have done Memory Maker, I honestly would not have been in any of our pictures. Some of my favorite pictures were some of the ones that the Memory Maker photographers took of us. So if you're still thinking about it, you should totally do it. Make sure you budget for it. It's not terribly expensive, and you can get some really good photos out of it. Make sure you plan ahead and you pay for that before you go though, because it actually is more expensive if you buy it after your trip. The last thing in this category is any sort of special vacation gear. So this is something a lot of people probably don't think to budget for, but maybe your family wants to wear matching shirts or matching hats, or oh no, I need to get some more shorts because I live in a cold climate area, or oh no, maybe I need a new bathing suit, things like that. So you want to make sure you do a little bit of money for those last minute things that you may not already have in your wardrobe. Okay, time for our 5th and final category, and this is probably kind of the trickiest one I have noticed to budget for, and that is going to be food. So with food, there are so many options to eat in Disney World. I mean, there's literally hundreds of restaurants. So with that, it can be a little tricky as far as, okay, so where are we gonna eat? How much is that gonna be? First of all, Disney is expensive. You're gonna wanna make sure you over budget on food. But with that too, what I always recommend is kind of just go through Disney's website and look at some of the restaurants that you might think you would be interested in. They have all of the menus on their website, as well as a lot of the prices for things too. So that will kind of help you determine a kind of ballpark about how much per meal that you would be eating. Now, along with this, I mean, they have the Disney dining plans that you can do. You can pay cash for your food. Honestly, that is just going to be up to you and your family as far as which route you're going to go. For right now, just starting to get a little bit of an idea of what you think you might be spending. There are 4 categories within this. You have your breakfast budget, your lunch budget, your dinner budget, and your snack budget. A lot of people think, oh, well, snacks, we don't need to do that. But snacks, there are so many good snacky items to eat in Disney World. Sometimes those even replace meals, but you do want to make sure that you budget money for those, because man, if you really want that churro or that Mickey pretzel or whatever, and oh no, we ran out of money, you guys will be so crushed. The best way that I always say is go through, get an idea of kind of what types of restaurants, if you're looking more table service restaurants that are the more expensive, if you're looking at quick service, which are a little bit cheaper, just kind of guesstimate about how you guys are going to be touring Disney World as far as food goes. If you guys are planning on traveling, which I mean you are planning on traveling, but if you're flying or you're taking a long time to get there, you want to make sure that you plan for food on the way. So if you're eating at the airport or you need to pick up food on the way, don't forget about that. A lot of people forget about that. Disney always has a lot of festivals and special events going on. So say you're going for Food and Wine Festival or Flower and Garden Festival. Sometimes you might be spending a little bit different amounts of money on those days than you would just eating at a normal restaurant. So it makes sure that you tweak your budget just a little bit based on if you are planning on doing that. Or maybe you are going on a really, really fancy dinner, or you have a dessert party or something like that that's going to be kind of your outlier as far as where your normal budgeting would go. Now what you're gonna do, once you've gone through and you've gotten all of those numbers all put together, you are going to split these up into 3 categories. You're gonna have your minimum budget, which is going to be kind of your most frugal, the least expensive trip that I can possibly take at Disney. The second category is going to be the total opposite, which is your maximum budget. So if you were totally to just like go all out, eat at all the fancy places, do the most, buy the most souvenirs, go at the nicest hotel that you would want to do, what is the maximum amount of money that you could be spending at Disney World? This is going to kind of give you your range as far as each category. You're going to actually do this for each individual thing that we talked about. Your third kind of category is going to be your actual number or your actual budget. Now, this is not something that you're going to fill out right away. This is going to be something that as you actually start booking things, you're going to start plugging in those numbers so that you kind of see, okay, so this was my minimum, this is my maximum. This is actually probably what we're going to be spending on our trip. Now that you've done that for everything, you're going to add all of those numbers up. And so you should have 3 big numbers. You should have your minimum amount that you're going to spend at Disney World, your maximum amount that you're going to spend at Disney World, and your actual amount that you will most likely spend at Disney World. Okay, so you have these huge numbers now. It's probably terrifying, really daunting. That's okay. Proud of you for getting this far. Now we're actually going to come up with our savings plan to raise enough money to actually go on this vacation. There are 2 ways that you can do this. It's super easy. The first way is actually how me and my husband do. First of all, we decide, okay, when are we going to Disney World? What are the dates that we're planning on going? You're gonna take your total amount budgeted, divide that by the number of weeks until you go to on your trip, and then that is how much money you're going to be saving every single week until your trip. And by the end of it, you'll have the amount that you need. Now, for some people, that number may be way too high and it may be too much, and that could be still too stressful. That is okay. If that's not what's in your budget, there is the other way to do this. So the other way is to actually decide, okay, what can my family afford to save every week or bi-weekly? And then you are going to take your budgeted number for your trip and you're going to divide that by the number that you know that you can spend weekly, and that's going to tell you about how many weeks it's going to take you to save up for your trip. This is going to give you a better idea of what time of year you might be able to afford, or maybe if you need to push your trip back a little bit, that's okay too. The biggest thing is, the goal of this is to be able to pay cash and to not have to worry about not having enough money for your trip. A big trick of this is really just making sure that whatever dollar amount that you come up with, it is reasonable for your family. If you cannot afford to save $500 a week, don't do that. Whatever your family can do and can afford, you need to stick to that. This sometimes means that it is going to be a little bit longer before you go on your trip, but just think about how much more worth it is going to be when you can go, pay cash for everything, and then you come home and none of it followed you home. It is such an unreal feeling, and so many people don't know how to experience this. I do have a couple tips for you while you are coming up with your numbers for everything. First of all, always over budget. You always want to make sure that you have more than enough for whatever that you are going to need. If you under budget just to save money, you're not actually gonna save money, because you're gonna get there and you're gonna realize, oh no, I actually needed a little bit more. Things are a little bit more expensive than I thought they would be. It's always good to have that cushion or that kind of emergency money. So really think of this as kind of a motivating factor. I mean, we've made fun, colorful charts that we've hung on the wall, and every time we put in a little bit more money for savings, we write on there, we put a star on there, and it makes you more excited because you're seeing that goal actually happen and come to life. And before you know it, I mean, you'll be in Disney World. So I mean, there's no greater feeling than that. Alrighty guys, well, that's all I got. I hope that was really helpful for you. I know that that's a really good tool that we use. Like I said, I'm going to link that budgeting form in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to hear more of my tips. And feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions about anything, or if you want me to kind of further explain any of the different categories or different steps that we use. So that's it, we're going to Disney World. Congratulations on your trip. I'm super pumped for mine, but I hope that we will see you in the next video.